Captain Jake Martinez stood before the massive crystalline doors of the Villani Royal Chamber, his hands steady despite the weight of humanity's future resting on his shoulders. The towering alien guards flanking the entrance possessed 4 arms, each their scaled skin shimmering with bioluminescent patterns that pulsed in rhythm with their breathing. "You may enter alone, human," declared Queen Nala, her voice resonating through the translation device with an otherworldly harmony that seemed to vibrate through his bones. The massive doors parted with a sound like singing crystals, revealing a chamber that defied comprehension. Jake had expected opulence, perhaps threats, or even some form of intimidation designed to showcase Villani superiority. Instead, he found himself stepping into what appeared to be a vast garden. But this was no ordinary botanical display. The space stretched impossibly wide, filled with plants from dozens of worlds he recognized and hundreds more he did not. The air itself seemed alive, thick with the scent of growing things and the subtle hum of advanced hydroponic systems. Towering trees from his homeworld of New Terra grew alongside delicate flowering vines from the ocean moon of Kepler 442b. Crystalline formations that served as plants on silicon-based worlds caught and refracted light in patterns that painted rainbow shadows across the living carpet beneath his feet. "This is remarkable," Jake whispered, his voice echoing in the vast space. Queen Nala materialized beside him, her form shifting slightly as her natural camouflage abilities adjusted to the garden's lighting. She stood nearly 8 feet tall, her elegant frame covered in scales that reflected the garden's colors like a living prism. Her 4 eyes, arranged in a diamond pattern on her elongated skull, focused on him with an intensity that would have been unnerving in any other context. "Every species that has sought alliance with the Villani Empire has been brought to this chamber," she explained, her tone measured and formal. "Each has been asked the same question, and each has failed to provide an answer that satisfies us." Jake nodded, understanding that this moment would determine whether humanity joined the galactic community as equals or remained isolated on the periphery. The Villani Empire controlled trade routes spanning 3 galaxy arms, and their approval could elevate human civilization by millennia. "What question would that be, Your Majesty?" The Queen gestured toward the garden with one of her 4 arms. "We have collected specimens from every world we have encountered in our 1,000-year expansion across the stars. Plants that can survive in methane storms, organisms that thrive in crushing gravity, vegetation that feeds on pure radiation. The question is simple. What do you see?" Jake walked deeper into the garden, studying the incredible diversity around him. The other species representatives had likely cataloged the biological variations, perhaps calculated the economic value of such genetic diversity, or admired the technological achievement of maintaining such a complex ecosystem. But as Jake observed more carefully, he began to notice something else entirely. Near a cluster of familiar earth roses, he spotted what appeared to be a small memorial plaque. Moving closer, he saw symbols in an alien script, but the translation device rendered them clearly, in memory of the Corvani people, whose world was consumed by their dying star. His breath caught as he realized what he was truly seeing. This was not just a botanical collection. Moving through the garden with new understanding, he found more markers. A grove of silver trees bore a plaque for the Zenthali, whose ocean world had been poisoned by industrial expansion. Crystalline formations honored the Threx, extinct when their gas giant home was stripped of its atmosphere by solar flares. "Your Majesty," Jake said, his voice thick with emotion, "this is not just a garden. This is a cemetery." Queen Nala's scales shifted to deeper hues, and her 4 eyes narrowed with what Jake recognized as surprise. "Continue. Every species that comes here sees the scientific achievement, the biological diversity, the technological marvel. But they miss the most important aspect." Jake knelt beside a small flowering bush whose plaque remembered a species called the Quinn, lost to a plague they could not cure. "This is a memorial to every civilization that did not survive to join your empire. You preserve not just their genetic legacy, but their memory." The Queen moved closer, her massive form surprisingly graceful among the delicate plants. "In our expansion, we have encountered 1,047 species across the galaxy. Of these, only 312 remain. The rest fell to war, natural disaster, disease, or their own destructive tendencies before we could establish contact. Jake stood, understanding flooding through him. And you have created this place to honor them. Every plant here represents not just biological diversity, but lives that mattered, civilizations that loved, dreamed, struggled, and ultimately lost their battle for survival. The Corvani created poetry that could move listeners to tears across species barriers. The Queen continued, her voice softer now. The Threx developed mathematics so elegant that our greatest scholars still study their theorems. The Zenthali composed music using magnetic fields that could soothe the most aggressive predators. And you remember them all? We do. Queen Nala's scales had shifted to what Jake intuited was a color of mourning. Previous species saw opportunity, conquest, or mere scientific curiosity. They looked at this garden and saw resources to exploit or achievements to admire. None understood that this chamber represents the greatest tragedy of galactic expansion, the silence of voices we will never hear again. Jake felt tears forming in his eyes as the true weight of what he was witnessing settled over him. How do humans fit into this? That remains to be determined. The Queen's 4 eyes studied him intently. Your species shows promise, but also the same destructive tendencies that claimed so many others. The question is, will humanity learn from these silent teachers, or will you someday require your own memorial in this garden? Jake walked among the memorials, reading names and stories of civilizations reduced to genetic samples and fading memories. The weight of responsibility felt crushing, but also inspiring. Humanity had been given a gift, the chance to see what awaited species, who failed to overcome their limitations. Your Majesty, he said finally, we would be honored to join your empire, not as conquerors or exploiters, but as gardeners. We want to help tend this memorial, to learn from these fallen civilizations, and to ensure that no species joins them if we can prevent it. Queen Nala's scales shifted to what Jake hoped was approval. Then perhaps there is hope for your kind after all, Captain Martinez. Welcome to the Villani Empire. As they walked together through the Garden of the Lost, Jake understood that he had not just secured humanity's future, but had found their purpose among the stars, to be guardians of memory and protectors of the living.